Okay, in this video, I am going to attempt to show you, my viewer, that propaganda is legal. Let me say it again. Propaganda is legal. In other words, no newspaper, no magazine, no television station, no reporter has to tell you or me or anyone the truth. So let me tell you about how it got into the, quote, legal system. And as a footnote, I do recognize there's law system and legal is fiction, but legal is what dominates and controls this hoax-lie system and everything around you. So for all practical purposes, what I'm trying to say to you is that every media source has a permission slip in their pocket to lie to you and to me and to anyone and everyone, and then never to say a word about it. And those lies will be buried for a long, long time. Probably after you're dead and gone. People will dig them up and say, oh, boy, did the people fall for that one. All right. Let's go back in time. Let's go back to what is called in our hoax history, World War II. At the end of World War II, introduced into Congress was a bill by Smith and Mont, M-U-N-D-T. And basically the bill said that we saw what happened in Germany because everything was a lie and propaganda was everywhere, and we never want that to happen in the United States. So they passed the Smith-Mont Act, I believe in 1948, which said propaganda cannot be used on the American people. But it did make a provision for propaganda broadcasting to foreign countries. In other words, on our own people, we will always, quote, tell the truth. Now, that was enacted in 1948. Now, it is not true that truth was always in the media, all right? So the media was a hoax-lie system even back in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s. However, on paper, it said that the media was not permitted to use propaganda on the American people. Was propaganda used on the American people? Absolutely. Was the hoax-lie system in place in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, and 70s, and 80s? Absolutely. But the point I'm making is that on the books, in terms of acts in Congress, this was not permitted. So now we get introduced H.R. 5736. It is called the Smith-Mont Modernization Act. And just by the sound of it, it sounds really good because everybody wants to modernize everything these days. So just if you heard that term, you would say, I'm in favor of it. And that's the way a lot of this stuff is, like the Patriot Act. Sounds really good, but if you read it, it's frightening. So it's given a good name, but on the inside of it, it's really absolutely terrible. So if you open it up, and I'm going to just pass along some slides here of these different things that we see. Okay, the Smith-Mont Modernization Act was put before Congress. Now, the act basically said that anyone has permission to use propaganda. However, within the Act, there is a provision that all media is under government control. In other words, all media is regulated by government. Yes. Now, if you really are hungry and really want to search things, you will download a copy of what I'm going to show you a little bit later, and you can read it for yourself. Let me just say that sometimes when I enter into discussions with people and I'm trying to bring them around, I will pull this out almost like a bottle of, when a person's fainting, smelling salts. I will pull it out of my pocket and I will try to put it under their nose and say, do you know propaganda is legal in America? And they just stop and sort of look at me, and then they go on with whatever it is. And they never come back and ask a question. They never ask me to recite anything. They never investigate anything. It's as if that statement made no impact whatsoever on them. I must say that this impacted me because I saw it in writing. And for me, that was kind of important because it reaffirmed to me that, yeah, it is a hoax, lie system. So I'm just flashing images in front of you so that you can see some of these images on screen, and then I will take you to some of the actual text. I'm not going to read it to you because it's a monster to read. It's like, once you get into it, it's like 30 pages. And basically, it will tell you that they can do whatever they want. Now, there it is, what's called the NDAA, abbreviated for National Defense Authorization Act, Section 1078. And that's where you get into about 20 or 30 pages of reading. You'll say, oh, I can't read that. That's too much. Well, don't be a baby. Read it. Read it. Maybe it'll be like smelling salts and bring you around. Maybe it'll jolt you out of the hoax lie system when you see it in writing that it's in there, that in a sense there's been a fusion of government and all media. All media. Because all media is under a board. And the board is appointed by the President of the United States, which means the government screens anything and everything. As to what you see in your newspaper, what you see in your magazines, what you watch on your so-called national news, what goes into your mind is now completely controlled. I mean, if you ever thought that it wasn't completely controlled, which I did at one time, I thought we had quota-free press. I thought we had programs that were balanced, giving you both points of views. But no, we don't. Don't you realize that they are coming out? There's Bernays, and he was the sort of the father of the usage of mass media for propaganda purposes. And he put everything in writing, and you can read some of his books and some of his literature, and also Lippmann too. They'll put it right up front. If you control the mass media, you control the people completely, 100%. Well, maybe 98%. There's a few of us out here in YouTube land that refuse to let the propaganda control us, because it's a con. Okay? So you could do this yourself. Look through some of these images. And what I'm going to do now is take you to some of the text. So I have to adjust things a little bit here. Okay, here it is. It's in NDAA section 1078. And for a while I had that actually in my memory, and I still do. Sometimes I don't get it out too quickly, but it might be something you might want to memorize. Like, it's NDAA 2013 section 1078. And just call it right out to somebody and say, I challenge you to read it. Maybe 1 out of 100 might actually take you up. Maybe you'll have better success than I've had. Even when I say this to good, respectable people, they just dismiss it within about 2 seconds and don't discuss it at all. So here you are in section 1078. And what it's going to do is revise the Smith-Mont Act of 1948. And first of all, they're going to say that it is now okay to use propaganda on our own people, the American people. And not only that, it's under a governing board, a broadcasting board of governors, made available to the archivists of the U.S. for distribution of motion pictures, films, videotape. In other words, they make it and then they send it to the television stations, and it's your news. Don't you get it? You're watching plays, you're watching films, you're watching actors, and they're just giving you whatever the heck they want to give you. Now, the other thing it does say in here, and again, it's a lot to read, okay? It's a lot to read. They'll take all their movies and all their plays, and they will put them away for a long, long period of time. How long? I think it was 30 or 40 years. Oop, I think I lost a section on you there. Got to get back to section 1078. Let me go back to the other text. There's HR 5736. Okay, and that is the original proposal within Congress to update the Smith-Mont 1948 Act. And then the material is all in there. Now notice, you'll see it right there. And then the section 1078 in the NDAA 2013 is just basically the same thing reiterated. So you can look and see there that there is a secretary appointed over it, and then the president appoints the board. In other words, all broadcasting is under control. Now, what you really need to do is you need to go to these actual texts, because remember, on YouTube and on the internet are people who try to stop you from knowing the truth. In other words, they will derail you, and they will say things like, "Oh, that's nothing at all," or "Don't pay attention to it," or "Here's what it really means." But you've got to get the source document yourself. All right? And so I'm pointing you to it. I'm pointing you to it. That it's in NDAA 2013, section 1078. So it's really up to you. What are you going to do? Okay, there would be the Smith-Mont Act signing, which was 1948. Now that the U.S. is a great victor over the Nazis in Germany, and we fought off Hitler and his madness in the phony war. So now Congress is saying, well, it's time that we take care of our American people so nothing ever happens to them. All right? So the Smith-Mont Modernization Act was passed so that you can be assured that in our land nobody's going to be propagandized. Okay? And that's the basis of the whole idea in 1948. Now, along comes a new act, a Modernization Act, because we do want to modernize, right? We do want to update, right? So, we're going to now make it so that it is now permissible to sign into legal form permission for propaganda to be used on the American people. Again, I try my best to work with folks, and I try my best to bring things to their attention. And I thought for sure this one would bring people around. But it really didn't shake anybody to tell them that propaganda is legal. They have no qualms about it. No qualms about it. You can use propaganda for any purpose, in any form of media, so long as it is monitored by this board, which is appointed by the president, which means that any form of media is ultimately under control of the government. Oh no, not my television station. Oh no, not the magazine I get. Oh no, not the newspaper I read. They're scripted across the board. That's what they mean by the films and stuff will be archived, and then they're going to be permissible for the public to see them in, and I forget the exact number of years, whether it's 30 or 50 years or something like that. We'll long be dead and gone. And they'll look back and they'll say, remember when all those people were wearing those air masks on their face and how silly they looked? It was all propaganda. Who was trying to tell them it was propaganda? Well, I'd like it to be known that I tried. And I'm not saying that I'm better than anybody else. I'm not saying that somehow I'm so special. Let's just say that I've been observant over the years, and whoops, says James Fetzer in solidarity with Alex Jones. Whoops. So the whole idea of fake news is really, really true. I mean, it's just made up garbledygook that people take into their brain and they believe it. And maybe we can learn from other countries. I've said before in a few of my videos that the nation of Japan actually will laugh at the news because they think it's so funny. Right now, people are not laughing. People are really, quote, dead serious, and they think they're going to possibly die because someplace hasn't been sterilized. They think they might die because they don't have on their mask. They think they might die if somebody sneezes on them. Okay? So there you have it. Started out HR 5736, Smith-Mont Modernization Act. It then ended up in NDAA 2013, Section 1078. You need to read it. I think it's about 20 pages of reading. And you might say, gee, I'm not a lawyer. Well, it doesn't matter. Just get the gist of it. The gist of it is, no matter what newspaper you pick up, no matter what magazine you read, no matter what television station you tune to, no matter what newscaster you think is on your side and on the side of American people and freedom and truth and all that, you're wrong. There are no exceptions anywhere. So it's a pretty difficult thing to swallow. I know. I had to personally swallow it myself several years ago. Maybe I will say maybe almost 10 years ago. And to me it was, quote, shocking. But I got enough shocks to shock me out of the hoax lie system. You need to be shocked. And you need to say, oh my gosh, have I been duped? Oh my gosh, have I been lied to? Oh my gosh, why do I listen to these propagandists? Oh my gosh, maybe I should be a little different, like that guy on War is Backwards is Raw, or like that guy called Dave Johnson, Dave J. Maybe I need to be different. And you know what I'm going to say? Yeah, you do. You need to realize you've been hoaxed. You've been lied to, and it's really, really bad now because now it is actually in writing. No truth anywhere. Did you hear me? No truth anywhere in the mass media. Thank you for listening. This is the end of the video.